Hey everyone, thank you for joining. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to pass form context to a HTML web resource. So let's go ahead and explain our concept. So on this form, the account form, we have the account number field. I've decided to use that since it's been a theme across many of our videos. And the other thing is that what we're going to do is we're going to embed that web resource, which will actually be a button that when we click, it's going to lock this field for the account number or unlock the field. So it'll essentially be a toggle function. Okay. But one of the things that developers face very often is trying to get context inside of like an iframe or something that's not really able to tap into the fields of the form itself, right? And those are things like subgrids, or web resources or iframes. Anything that's kind of embedded inside of the form can't get context from any of these parameters fields on the form. So what I'm going to do here is show you what it takes to do it. First, you have to have an HTML web resource with inline JavaScript. And then you also have to have your own independent onload JavaScript function. So let's talk about the HTML web resource first. So I told you that it's going to be a button, and that's it. And then in your inline JavaScript, what you have is these global variables that we're going to use cleverly. Um, and these are window.parent form context. They start out as null, but then they get a value later. You have this function called initialize button, which is very critical. It takes execution context as its first parameter. And then here we're actually assigning these global variables, window.parent execution context, the value of execution context, and then getting the form context from there. Then we're able to very easily, inside this same script, leverage the toggle lock function, which will use the account number field and be able to use that global variable for the context to tap in and make logic execution. So we can lock and unlock the field, right? So we're doing all of that from inside the web resource on clicking the button, but we're interacting with the form itself, the form attributes. And that's a beautiful thing. That's a powerful thing. Now, this actual function here is crucial. Without this, none of this works. So this is an onload function. What we're going to do here is pass execution context as the first parameter. We'll get our form context. And then by doing that, we're going to then initialize a variable that captures the control where our web resource is. So web resource control. And that's where we're going to pass the name, the unique identifier or unique name of that web resource control. If that control exists, then we're going to call get content window. Then we're going to call that initialize button function and pass execution context. That's when this function becomes extremely powerful and we can then toggle lock and do everything we need to do. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started by registering our web resources in the system, and then we'll take this for a test drive. All right, so we click new. This is going to be an HTML web resource that we're creating. Let's call it HTML web resource sample. Make sure you're choosing the right type of content here. Then just copy all your code that you worked hard to build. Make sure you choose source because you want to overwrite any of this stuff. And there you go. There's your HTML web resource with inline JavaScript. Okay. So now you save this, you publish this. So now you have your resource. Next thing you got to do is go back in here and create another resource, which is going to be for your onload function. We'll just call this account onload. and it's a JavaScript file. Oops, copy this, and there it is. Beautiful. Now, keep in mind that we still have to figure out what the name of that control is. So let's go ahead and go into our account form and embed our web resource above the timeline so that we can find out what that unique name is. So we'll insert a web resource, and I'll just type in my developer prefix or publisher prefix to search, and there's our web resource we just created. And I'll just call it formContext sample. Okay. I'll hit OK. I'll move this over to above the timeline. And then right here, I have a very convenient little way of getting the name. So you just reopen this and you can get you could say the schema name or the logical name of this control. So now I can pass this right here. I definitely want this right here. This is the control that we're going to be grabbing. Web resource underscore form context sample. That's the control on the form. If we don't get the right control, then none of this is going to work. So then let's go back into our account onload and let's just paste over it. Now we have the right data inside of it. Let's hit OK. Let's save. Let's publish. Let's take a look at our code one last time, make sure everything looks good. I'm not seeing any issues. Yeah, I think we should be good. So now that all that is in place, I'm going to save and publish the form. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to register that onload event. So you have to add your library, right? The library we just created. That's the account onload function. Let's make sure it's the same one that we were looking at. Yep, it is. And so then the next thing is we're going to add, the name of the function is called onload. We're going to pass execution context as the first parameter. We're going to hit OK. You can see it's enabled. We hit OK. Save and publish our form. Cross our fingers and see if this works. Be cached a couple times. Okay. I'll keep the console open so you can see how the debugger. So here's our onload function. We'll just step through it. We have our form context. We've got the control. That's good. Okay. Everything looks like it should work. Okay, good. I like it. I'm going to go ahead and refresh the page. All right. Let's try it out. So do we have our button? Okay, so the button's visible. Okay, cool. So if you can see here, when I click this button, it locks this field. When I click it again, it unlocks the field. While it's locked, I can't do anything to the field. I can't modify anything. When I click toggle field lock again, I can modify different aspects of the field. Beautiful. So this web resource has no conception normally of the fields and attributes that are on this form, but right now it does. So I could manipulate any of the attributes that I want. I could perform all sorts of validations based on this web resource, whatever this web resource may be. All right. Lock, unlock. Good stuff. So this is very powerful because once you start embedding like web resources and subgrids, then you have to go up multiple layers, and you really want to make sure that if you're trying to tap into, like for example, a specific ID of a form or a certain key, that like a foreign key, those are things that you're gonna need to leverage tools like what I just showed you to be able to access dynamically, um, in order to create solutions for your customers. So thank you so much for watching. This was a lot of fun to put together. Have a great day.